good question. Thank you. It's a very quite interesting thing. Teacher associations.
I hope it's going to be interesting, Richard. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of the symposium, and thanks for staying on until this point. I hope you stay beyond this. I'll be talking about a teacher association research project that started in 2013 in Cameroon. I'll be giving a brief background, of what led to us calling this teacher association research project and what steps have been taken since then. So as a quick background, in 2013 in August, because Cameroon, CAMELTA, as the Cameroon ELC Association, has its annual conference every year in August, which brings together members from its 10 regional chapters. TISOL kindly agreed to organize a symposium on the day before the conference started, and that meant that we had speakers, plenary speakers and experts coming from the US and the UK, whom we eventually used also for our conference, and it was great to have TISOL supporting that event. And so we looked at, before that, we looked at the areas of needs for our members within the association, and we identified 3: assessment, professional development, and teaching in difficult circumstances, teaching large classes, basically. And on the basis of that, we agreed to bring speakers who are experts in these different areas, including Dina Boré, Christine Combe, and also Richard Smith from the UK. So each of them ran a workshop during the symposium with teachers, and then, of course, went on to do a plenary session during the conference itself. And in Richard's plenary work, between the symposium and the plenary, discussions we had helped shape the presentation that Richard was going to do during his plenary for the CAMELTA conference itself. So before we went to Cameroon, Richard and I had identified a number of concerns that teachers had, and this emerged from the data I collected for my PhD at that time. Very large and multi-grade classes, ranging, well, really large classes, up to about 150 in primary schools, and 200 plus in secondary schools. And teachers were grappling with this. There were very low resources, no technology. Because Cameroon is immensely multilingual, 286 languages, and it also have got French and English as official languages. So all these factors, and also sequential assessment, because the system allows for teaching for every 5 weeks and then a week of assessment. And so teachers dealing with all these issues have to assess students, mark papers every 5 weeks, in addition to teaching as well. So these were some of the issues we identified, and Richard was shaping his presentation to take these into consideration. Once we arrived in Cameroon and in discussions with teachers and inspectors who were also members of the association, though we also found other concerns that kind of complemented the concerns that we had identified before. Issues of general dissatisfaction with the conditions of primary and secondary teaching, although there were some outstanding teachers recognized within the association who gave presentations and shared good practice, but there was a general dissatisfaction. There was also a perceived need to understand the nature and the extent of the difficulties that teachers had as a basis for proposing any improvement. And then we also talked about the unlikelihood of most CAMELTA members being able to carry out individual research projects because they themselves were not trained in research. They didn't have the time to do that, and there was really no incentive. In fact, a recent study done by one of my colleagues at the higher teacher training, the University College of Education, where teachers are trained, shows that more than 90% of research coming out, done by future teachers, by trainee teachers, is on literature, analyzing literary text. A small percentage is dedicated to analyzing literary texts in traditional, in local languages and cultures, and another small percentage is given to analyzing language issues, and very little to actual teaching practice. So they come out with no real experience of carrying out research in the area of ELT. So because of this, Richard had to change his topic from, I think it was from in difficult circumstances, the power of teacher research, to in your circumstances, the power of CAMELTA research. And the plenary became more of a workshopy plenary where teachers were asked to think about those burning issues they would want to research if they had the time to do that. And on the basis of that, 188 teachers each wrote down 2 or 3 research questions they would want investigated. Those were collated and put together and provided online. I'll show you the website in a moment. And then, beyond the conference, we had an extra week in Cameroon where we met with the research committee of the CAMELTA and discussed this elaborately to find out what we could do. And it was agreed that we would start an open-ended questionnaire, just eliciting stories of good practice and also challenges that the teachers had. So, and we thought that that would help us get a large amount of data from the teachers, and if we could mobilize the association, but also help in sharing of appropriate possible local solutions to some of the problems that the teachers were raising, but also engage in some collective development of research schemes and other things that we hoped to be able to develop from collecting that data and reflecting with the research team. So, these are some of the questions. Like I said, 188 teachers produced lots of questions, so we put those together, collated them, they are on the CAMELTA website. And so these are some of the questions that we had. How can you make students interact actively in English during English language lessons? Of course, some of these would not be research questions in the way in which we know research questions, but they were just an opportunity for teachers to ask some questions that might help in thinking towards improving, thinking about their practice and how they could improve, understanding their challenges and their practices. So we did categorize this into what we call, that's a research team of CAMELTA now, into what we call research priority areas. For example, question number 1 and question number 2 fell under the priority area we called student participation and engagement. 3 and 4, low resources, and then 5 and 6, teaching multi-grade classes. So that's how we categorize the data. And the questionnaire that was, the open-ended questionnaire had different sections, but section B had these 3 questions. So teachers were encouraged to write a story of a recent successful experience in their teaching, what they think made it successful, and just reflect on it and history. We sent out a total of 1,000 questionnaires to the 10 regions, and these were distributed during their regional chapter events. And we got back 501 responses, which was quite large data. Research seek funded the typing, the transcription of this data. But we also learned a lot from the experience that some of the data was not, it was either written in English that only Harry could understand, which I couldn't understand because it's really local expressions. And that teachers didn't take a lot of time to tell a long story. They didn't have time to do that. So some of the stories were really short. And compared to what's happened after that, where they are allowed to tell their story, and we've recorded those stories, we have really, really long accounts, reflective accounts of stories. So it's because of this experience that the team now in Cameroon has moved on to recording stories of success rather than asking teachers to write those stories. And section C had an extra question. Please write freely below if you have any comments about the questionnaire. And these are the responses that we had from section C. Teachers said things like the open-ended nature of the questionnaire gives room for free expression of the successes and or failures encountered in ELT by the respondent. Self-reflection, it has helped me, this questionnaire has helped me explain the difficulties I face in my work and to reflect on my responses to these difficulties. This will help me improve my teaching and thus help my students eventually. Things like this is a laudable initiative because it creates room for teachers to express some of the problems and successes they face and to bring up some ideas on how they can curb those problems by so doing they get to educate other teachers. Thank you. Okay. And that's the website where we put all the data, so the research questions that we put together and also the data that we got from the questionnaire. If you go on this website, you go to the resources section, you'll find links to each of the different responses to the different parts of the questionnaire as well. And it's our reflection on this experience with CAMELTA that led Richard and myself to think about the concept of teacher association research, which by analogy with teacher research would be something like a systematic inquiry, which is based on association members' priorities and officially endorsed by the teacher association itself, and which engages members as active participants in what they see as a collective project. Now, how has the project evolved since 2013 and 2014, which is the year in which the questionnaire data was collected? More recently, a group of volunteers who call themselves CAMELTA Research Group emerged from this project, and they're mostly made up of teachers in their first 5 years of teaching, and they're supported by a colleague, Dr. Eric Campbell, who himself is a secondary school teacher and who's done some research, whose research was on actual teaching and learning in the classroom, and who developed an interest in the project itself. So Eric has been working with a group of teachers. Initially there were 24 teachers. The number dropped to 18, and it went up back to 38, with some of those who dropped are coming back because it's gaining steam. And what we basically do in the group is that we've got a WhatsApp group. I'm a member of the WhatsApp group. We do have weekly conversations in the weekend, just 1 hour, Saturdays, where they talk about specific issues. And Eric has been giving them short articles on different areas to read and comment about. So there's that reflective reading and reflective discussion aspect going on. But the first thing we did was to ask teachers to go back to the research questions on the website and to the members, the first 24, to identify research questions they thought resonated most with their own experiences and to explain why they think those would be our top priorities. Now, this conversation happens on WhatsApp. You have the sheet, I hope. We have enough copies for everyone. Unfortunately, they're on the front seats. So this is just a sample of the things that teachers said. So each teacher identified one research question from the list of questions and had to explain why they thought that was an important question. So for example, 1A, what can teachers of English do to sustain learners' interest in large classes? And the teacher says, I choose this question because interest is central to participation and learning. Once the learner loses interest, all what you prepared, no matter how excellent it was, would have been wasted. Right? So you can look at those, but this is how we identify the priorities for the research group. So on the basis of this, they identified 3 priority areas. That was learner motivation, lack of resources, and low learner proficiency. This year, they have been working only on learner motivation. Next year, it would be lack of resources. And what has the work consisted of? Of course, readings online and discussions on WhatsApp. And then they have monthly meetings, where face-to-face meetings, and we've thanks to funding from the University of Bath, but also the American Cultural Embassy in Cameroon also provided us space. So we were able to get the teachers together every month. And during their monthly meetings, 3 teachers are identified the month before to teach and come and tell a story of their lessons. So they tell the story of their lessons and show their lesson plans, share their lesson plans, and then there's a question and answer session which helps them reflect on those lessons and generate ideas for good practice. And then at one stage the teachers had to decided that they wanted to kind of get an inventory of the activities that were generated from those discussions. What were those activities that could motivate learners? And on the back of the page, you'll find some of the things that the teachers were able to generate as ideas for motivating learners from their own practices. And it is until that point when there are 4 meetings and reflected on good practices that the idea of research emerged from the teachers themselves. And the question was, what can we do to be able to collect information that will help us extend our reflections just beyond what we are telling, our own accounts. And the ideas that came from the teachers themselves on our WhatsApp discussion was that they would want to develop a teacher questionnaire, they would want to do peer observation, what has now been called a mobility scheme. I'll explain that. They would want to make a table of the methods or activities that they use in teaching and ask learners to vote the most effective. They want to record some of their lessons. They want to make a checklist for learners to tick what's best for them, etc., etc. These were their ideas about how they could collect information from their students to complement what was happening, what their accounts were. So that led us into a mobility scheme much later, which engaged pairing our members, the members of the research group. So this is Emmanuel, and that is Roland. They're one pair. So what happens is that Roland goes to Emmanuel's classroom with a checklist and an open-ended feedback form, which he gives Emmanuel. Emmanuel goes to Roland's classroom with a checklist and open-ended feedback form, which he gives Roland's students. And then Emmanuel observes Roland's class, takes his own notes, also uses his phone to get some video shots, just for kind of to inform the conversation later on. And then together they reflect on how the lesson went. And then Emmanuel goes away, looks at the data from the students, and then brings that together. And both of them reflect on all of that together. And in the next face-to-face meeting, they report on that lesson, what they learned from the students' feedback and from their conversation, and what they would do better next time. And then, in return, Roland goes to Emmanuel's classroom because they teach the same level of learners. And then the same thing happens. But Roland tries to put into practice some of the discussions, the things that emerged from the previous conversation. And then the feedback that to the WhatsApp group as part of our weekly conversation, but also in the face-to-face conversations. So one of the projects they were involved in was protecting the environment, and we prepared the lessons together within the team. And so you would see here what the task was for the children, where they had to read this text on environment, and then the task that developed together was for the children. These are St. James students, second year of secondary school, Francophone students. They have to write a letter to the mayor, giving him proposals on how their environment could be kept cleaner. And so this is an example. I'm writing this letter to you to propose some solutions to keep our environment clean, etc., etc. I'll move to the next one. A request for permission for proposal of solutions on how to keep our environment clean. With all the respect I have for you, I am asking in front of your high authority and permission. That's French, it's the influence of French, it's typical, the protocol in French, but they were able to produce text like this. But one of the solutions that they gave was also, in addition to sensitizing the population, providing waste management facilities, was also recycling of non-biodegradable objects. And those were ideas that came from the 2 different classes. So Emmanuel and Roland then decided that they were going to engage their students even further from their reflections. And this is what their students were able to produce as homework from the type of things that they were proposing. They're proposing to the mayor to recycle some of the waste, and they were able to do this together. So it's become a pairing project now with teachers working in pairs and sharing, reflecting on their practice and sharing that. And what we're doing is just recording this huge amount of data that's already exploding this year. We don't know how we're going to ever transcribe all of that. And more recently, the teachers themselves said, well, maybe we should start learning about research in a more formal way. And I can't remember, but the idea of actual research emerged. And we were able to working with the American embassy and the regional English language officer in Senegal to get Peggy Khan, who is in Cameroon, who works in the university in Cameroon, to run the first workshop on action research. And that happened on the 26th of last month. So that is the first time we actually did talk about research in the group. And we are now planning other things that we might be able to do. So this is where we are now. That's my concluding slide, just to say that the example, for us, the example is, the CAMELTA example is just about research that's initiated and carried out collectively by the Teacher Association itself, by members who are research-savvy, but also motivated teachers. And we are looking forward to seeing these teachers present in the next CAMELTA conference already. We have a slot for a plenary session from these teachers. Some of them have never presented in a conference before. And also in the regional workshops, they would be giving presentations. And for us, that's a way of encouraging them to come out of the closet of being ordinary teachers and seeing themselves as informed practitioners. Thank you.